Pledge allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, administrative updates, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. I hope everyone had a wonderful, relaxing Thanksgiving break. I appreciate the board members that could make it down to OSBA Columbus a few weeks ago. I think it was a productive trip. I got to see a number of legal updates. I know we went to some events and talked to legal counsel, and so I thought that was very good. I'd like to congratulate all of our fall sports teams. Another banner year. We had a very cold but rough kind of loss there to end the football playoff season, and congratulations to Coach Geschwitz for all the awards that he's received. And basketball is in full swing. I think the girls are playing tonight, right, Mr. Giselle?
Yep.
So here we go. Winter is here in full swing. So other than that, we're buckling down here to finish up the semester. We've got some iReady testing going on in middle school, and retraining our kiddos on how to behave at school after their little time off, but it's been a good start back. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And is there any public participation, Gina? Yeah, I don't see any. We'll just check. Is that a negative? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Letters A through C. Any discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Leidig,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mr. Chubsker,
Yes.
Mr. Welch. Yes. Mrs. Bolt.
Yes. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. Under personnel this evening, we have approval appointment for certified. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the position and rate of pay indicated as recommended by the local superintendent. Under B, personnel approval appointment classified. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed for the position indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification, training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent. C, personnel approval appointment 2022-23 athletic supplemental. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the 2022-23 athletic supplemental position and rate of pay indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification, training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. D, personnel appointment substitutes. The board is asked to approve the individuals noted for substitute positions listed as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. Personnel E, approval appointment athletic volunteer 2022-23. The board is asked to approve the individual listed as a volunteer for the 2022-23 winter sport noted pending successful completion of background check, certification, and as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. And we have a corrective action this evening. The board is asked to approve the corrective action noted previously approved at the November 8th, 2022 meeting as recommended by the local superintendent. And approval out-of-state professional development in New Hampshire. The board is asked to approve an out-of-state travel for Rachel Milkey to attend a SQUAM workshop retreat in New Hampshire, September 13th through the 17th, 2023, as recommended by the local superintendent and principal. This out-of-state travel is at no cost to the district other than a substitute schedule to cover for her days out. This concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? The girls basketball coach under letter C, assuming it was at middle school, usually indicates PMS or PHS, I think.
Middle school, second grade.
Middle school, 7th grade. Oh, well, oh, you're up.
I did fail to note that we have the Ohio Department of Education and National Organization Knowledge Works visiting our campus tomorrow. I think that Dr. Malcheski, notified us that the board update and we're all ready to go with the pomp and circumstance and all the things we need to.
We are ready to go. Yes,
be
starts at
solid
8
those-
o'clock in the morning.
So,
Coffee will be served.
excellent.
So roll call on that.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Truxger,
Yes.
Mr. Welch,
Yes.
Mrs. Foley,
Yes,
Mr. Lighting.
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Gallant, all right, hold on. You want to go to your addendum? Dr. Duncan?
Sure.
Check, yeah.
Foley.
You almost had it.
We're all waiting in anticipation for Mr. Gallant's report.
You would say the best for last.
Yeah, I have some addendum items. We have a certified appointment. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the position and rate of pay indicated as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. I look forward to, well, hopefully we never have an agenda without a sub appointment as we continue to work hard and you get those. Thanks to Dr. Malczewski. Under B, personnel approval appointment substitutes, the board is asked to approve the individual noted for the substitute position listed as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. This includes my superintendents have been informed.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Lighting,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Truxger,
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gallant, the floor is yours.
Madam President. First item I have is approval of financial reports. The board is asked to approve the financial reports from October 2022 as recommended by the chief financial officer. Item number 2, the board is asked to approve the expenditure amount of $184,307 to TK elevator under the Sourcewell contract number 186033 as recommended by the chief financial officer and director of maintenance and operations. And I'll discuss this under the discussion. Third item is board is asked to approve the 5-year forecast as presented by the chief financial officer.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Discussion.
Yes, let me go, let's talk about the elevator. This is the middle school elevator.
This is just one.
This is one elevator. It is obsolete control systems and everything on it. Jim, I think his quote was, we're holding together popsicle sticks.
Literally possible.
He can't get the parts. It's a 35-year-old
Original?
original elevator parts. He can't get it, and we need to have an elevator for handicap access and everything else. We have gone through the vendors, we've gone through the state contracts. We brought in the architect to look at what else we can do as far as, besides taking it out, putting a whole new elevator, which is essentially what we're kind of doing. That's the cost of the elevator systems.
Would we, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, or would we anticipate that this would be happening with our other elevators also?
At some point, yes.
Yeah. Now, we will keep the parts for this elevator in hopes to be able to maybe keep the other 2 elevators running longer if some of the things go down. So we are scavenging the parts of this one to try to prolong that. But, you know, we get comments all the time, you know, this district, these buildings are 30 years old and look brand new, but the inner workings, unfortunately, they're not. And these are shocking expenditures that we're seeing on some of the capital expenses that we need to do to maintain our building, and elevators aren't an option. You know,
Was
they're-
this a surprise?
yeah,
It was
it was a shock.
About a month ago, we sent it back to the architects to look at, is there any other way to do this? Well, we know it's not a warranty, but is there any other way to reconfigure this at not this cost, but it's a $150 million facility.
The last time it broke down, we had to get a gentleman out of Chicago to come in and put the popsicle sticks on it to get it to keep running with some of the things that are going on. So, and then like then design, you know, we scrutinized and that's why we brought that design in to say, hey, is this real?
We would have, ideally, we would like to wait longer on this, but this is a safety system. And so we're kind of stuck there.
And what we're going with is not by any means top of the line for as much as this elevator is used. I mean, it's what we have to do.
This is just to take the current systems and controls, because you can't just replace out a piece of it now. It's kind of replaced the whole control system on it. Bringing it up just to the current standard.
So other ones in the district, I know Nikki asked if those would be. we would
Well,
anticipate the same.
so right
You know where
now-
they are?
They're not experiencing problems.
Okay.
As Jack said, we'll salvage any parts that we can. And Jim has gone through eBay and everything else to try to find parts. We'll take the existing parts that we can save, we'll put it on the side. If those parts happen to be what we need over the next couple of years, then that's great. We'll buy another couple of years on the system.
And Lou, you do bring up a good point. Mr. Smith has become very adept at eBay and shopping those areas for replacement parts, and not just our elevators, but all of our systems. And I can't explain, he's very excited about some kind of circuitry part he picked up last week. I mean, he is excited.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he had some parts that he was looking at spending like $20,000 to $30,000. He picked it up for like 200 because it was an obsolete system that people were just getting rid of. But for us to had to upgrade that system, that would have cost us. In this case, we don't have that as a.
So with other schools being taken down and stuff like that, maybe they have parts that.
And that's where typically you get some of
Is
that
that where
stuff.
that
Yeah.
comes from?
In this case, we need it now. We don't have time to wait. With our HVAC system, he actually goes and he will, he'll go on eBay and he'll say, hey, I need these parts. So if he sees them on eBay, he'll buy 2 or 3 of them and have them stored because he knows that essentially our system is getting obsolete there too. And if we replace that, that's, I don't know how many million, but I mean, that's what'll happen.
He had some of the same problems with our doors. The manufacturers stopped making some of the parts, so we continue to try to find these parts for the doors.
So I also want to talk about the forecast a little bit too. So the forecast, we do this semi-annually. This year, we're looking at the years 2020 to 22 as the actual data years, and then the forecast years of the current year, fiscal year 23, and the out years of 24, 25, 26, and 27. From a revenue standpoint, and we've had nothing really changes in our revenue. We have a very flat tax base. We don't get a lot of change from the state government. The only thing that changes is that reimbursement that we get from the state. Jack and I are constantly down in Columbus on trying to maintain that, because that's not going to increase, that's just going to go away. So we try to buy time on that. Our revenue in fiscal year 22 last year was $23.7 million in the general fund, and it's projected 2027 to be 24.4 million. That's a 4% increase over 5 years. That's not a big number. On the expense side, we generally understand that we have wage increases, we have cost of benefits increasing, and that projects over time. Over the last 3 to 5 years or so, we've actually had a decrease in expenses of, we average 1.8% decrease in expenses over the last 3 years. And that's really due to decreasing enrollment and decreasing costs. So we have shed some costs because we've had decreasing enrollment. So as actual salaries have gone up, cost of benefits have gone up, the price of goods has gone up, our overall expenses have gone down because we actually have less people than we had 3 or 4 years ago. That's not going to be the case forever. When we do our projections moving forward from this year, moving on, we don't assume that we're going to have a student decrease. We assume that we're going to have a pretty status quo student enrollment. And although we're under our contracts with both OPSI and teaching staff for this year and 3 more with raises built in, we get some retirements to offset that, but our cost of healthcare went up 8.5% this year. So that's a cost increase. We're projecting inflationary increases of 4 to 5%. for this forecast. Currently, I think inflation sits at about 5 or 6%. The Federal Reserve has said they're going to work hard to bring it down to 2% by raising interest rates. That has a kind of a double effect. If you're borrowing money, it's costly, but if we have money in the bank, we'll earn greater interest on that. But the cost of our goods is going to go up. So we'll see some increased costs, but we'll see some increased revenue associated with that. But again, that's only going to be temporary. We expect that probably for the next year or two. The net effect of the forecast is we're projecting our cost to go up at probably 4% or so a year. We expect our revenues to be flat, and therefore, whereas we have I'll say fairly balanced within a couple $100,000 balanced budget this year, that does compound if we don't do anything about it. So it has a slight deficit, greater deficit, and it compounds to a bigger deficit on an annual basis unless we do something. We do something through retirement, we do something by meeting regularly to make sure that the departments are efficient, make sure that we're still doing things we should be doing for kids, but we're doing it in a cost-effective manner. We do try to keep classes small, because that's what we want to do with Perry. We do try to provide services to our families, because that's what we do. We have to do so in a cost-effective manner. We have to make sure that there's not areas that we're wasting funds. So that's what we constantly do in each department, in each building, and across the district. That's what we do. And so we use our projections, and we say, hey, here's our target. How do we get rid of the deficit to turn into a balanced budget? And that's the annual.
And we've done a lot of shared services, and
Yeah, we do that.
those things will continue.
Where we can. And so if it's not effective to share a service because of what our need is, if we need a 60 or 70% person and somebody needs a 50%, it may not be an exact match. If it's 50-50 or if it's 70-30, maybe we find that match. But it's not, we do it wherever we can. But it's not always the best way. But yeah, we do a lot of it, and it does save dollars.
And if memory serves, we were projecting a much bigger deficit this year than what we actually ended up with, right?
Yeah, so we sat down in February, we did all our staffing, and we looked at, remember, all the extra COVID staff. We looked at what our student numbers were going to be, and we had a lot of staff members that we did not bring back. We had some retirements that we did not bring back. We know of some, and again, this isn't the forecast. We know of some retirees that we have coming up this year and in future years. And although they're not in the forecast, they're not in the forecast because we really haven't received those letters and taken action on those. So if we're projecting a deficit not next year, but not this year, next year, we're projecting $1 million of deficits spending, not deficit in our cash balance, deficit spending. Well, we know that some of that's going to come back because we're going to have 3, 4, 5 staff members who are going to retire. And then we have to decide if and how we replace them. Typically, just by replacing them, you save money because you take someone at the top of the pay scale and replace with someone at the bottom of the pay scale, or near the bottom. Times are tough, labor market's tough. We replace as best we can now. But we have to meet the needs of kids, and we have a cash balance to offset these bumps in the road like we have in the current economic conditions.
And hopefully the grants will continue to come in as they have.
Yeah, we can,
A lot of great grants out there
you
too.
right? Not just the administrative staff, but district-wide, we seek a lot of grants. We have teachers seeking grants for their classrooms and what they teach. We have our administrators going after grants in all different areas that we work, whether it's the 21st century grants, I can't even think of
Career workforce grants.
the workforce grant. So we get over $1 million a year in grants, and that has been hugely beneficial in pushing deficit spending out.
How does
So-
the effect of rooftop pads, we're looking at 50 back where I live, 100 at the end of Narrows.
So
Call it 150 net new. Granted, it's not happening next year, but
yeah,
Some of the
so
wind
it's hard.
gaps.
It's hard to predict because depending on what they're like, in your neighborhood, you might get 1.5 kids per house. Right? But if it's over in that 50+ neighborhood, back off of
Main Street.
what street?
Main Street.
Main Street.
Hidden-
Yeah, I can't name of that place. You may not get many kids in that. So, and then what also happens is that in a couple of those neighborhoods, the kids may graduate and the parents may stay there for another 5-10 years. And so that's a house that is kind of designed to have families in it. It doesn't. So it's really hard to project how many kids we're gonna have until we start. Lisa does the child find, we know some of the numbers, we know some of the preschool numbers and everything else. But we don't always know who's gonna move in and who's gonna.
But I'm also wondering about tax base.
So we're at the 20 floor, residential.
Yeah.
So that's the only growth we're getting.
Right.
So we know the power plant's devaluing, so we're losing a little bit there. But we're at the 20 floor, so any growth that we get to values, so new homes creates new value. And so it bumps up off 20 floor now. It's the average house in Perry is 220 or so. So that might generate, it's 35% assessed value of that, and then 20 mils, which is $20 per thousand on that. So, and that's all new money then, right? Because we're at that base floor. That's not projected in here because we don't.
Yeah, there's no promise.
In a-
Who knows what's gonna happen.
If you look at the numbers in the housing market right now, the demand is almost nothing because interest rates are 6.5% to 7%. And nobody's, and we don't know where the economy's gonna be in 6 months from now. The bottom line of the forecast is we maintain, we continue to follow the course. We continue to try to make sure that we pay our employees from top to bottom fair wages, we provide good benefits as a lot of public entities do. And we want to make this a desirable place to work. And we stay the course with providing not huge, but not zeros, steady increases. And you keep it manageable so you can manage 1 or 2 years at a time rather than trying to face huge deficits down the road. At the end of the 5-year forecast, we're still projecting to have about a 60% of annual budget cash balance. The threshold of being financially healthy is about 30%. So even after 5 years, we're still a healthy financial district. If you go further out, because you're not enacting changes, you don't project that, it might look worse further out, but that's our job annually, is to make it look better.
Anybody have any questions or? Good.
So
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the update. So we've, should do a roll call.
Mrs. Trevsker,
Yes.
Mr. Welch,
Yes.
Mrs. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Reidick,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
So I think now we will motion for,
Can we touch upon some unfinished business first?
absolutely,
And I just want to bring up with Todd, we've had some discussions on this this house purchase. And I think last month we talked about it again, try to get a feel for the market and try to see what our costs were. And Todd and I have had some discussions because the one house we're looking at is kind of a little bit out of that budget range and direction we had. But Todd, you want to talk about some of the things we talked about as far as maybe extending it out?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on where we've been since last month is we've sat through about 4 or 5 of the online auctions. We've bid up to a certain amount, but haven't been able to hit the reserve amount. We don't know what the reserve is because it hasn't been hit by anybody. We think we're some of the only people bidding on the house. but they do have a counter bid once you get into there where on behalf of the seller, the auction site will bid to try to keep it moving. So we went and were able to view the outside of the house and look at what was needed done. We have a little bit better budget. So what Lou and I have talked about along with Ryan Suzie is having a plan A, which would be a lot of the basics that you have to do: roof, windows, siding on the exterior, on the inside, some drywall repatch. You could do different things with flooring, new kitchen. So you're pretty much your basic flip that would give us a timeline of, let's say, 2 to 3 years. So 2 to 3 years of a learning center. The other thing we talked about is if we went up a little bit higher on that purchase and looked at it as a 4 or 5 year learning center, and maybe had an addition on the back of the house, which would fit well with, if you look at other houses in the market that have sold at that square footage where we would be with that addition on the house, then it becomes a learning center for 4 to 5 years. And if you break even at the end of that 4 to 5 years, you got 4 to 5 really good years of learning for our students and a pretty neat project. And our plan would be to start with the plan A portion of it, see how the market's doing in 2 to 3 years. Maybe it's fine and you sell it at that point. Maybe you say, hey, let's stay in this for 2 more years and do the addition. It would still stay within that dollar amount of where we've been with the total money that we were able to make off of the first house of the project a lot because of the grants. So those are the different options that we have: plan A, plan B, or do both plan A and plan B as you monitor the market over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years.
The difference to where our direction of the board has been is that this would increase the upfront and the dollars for renovation that we discussed, but it would also increase the resale value, and so you have higher dollars, increased square footage, increased resale value, and you spread out over a greater period of time. Therefore, the program's as sustainable, and again, it's a longer period of time. And, we're spending most of our time buying and selling
Yeah,
rather than giving to the kids to be working on. So if we can get some more flexibility, we still think we can stay within a budget of cost plus renovation equals the sale price. But we could gauge the market, and if the market is down, we'll think, and we'll just add on to it, put some more work into it, and then when the market comes back, we sell it for a higher price because we have a better market value.
we're still focused on the same house, on one house.
Yes.
It's pretty much the only,
And
it's one of the only options at this point.
And the comps on that house, even with the budget, again, higher than what the board's guidance was, the purchase price of the house maybe a little higher, and the cost, the resales are still higher than what our budget would be.
Yeah, where we think the reserve is at right now, plus the amount that we'd have would put us right at what we worked with the realtor to get an after repair value. It would be almost at that exact amount. We just have been hesitant to go up to that amount based on previous guidance and
Yeah, and we just,
a little bit of the uncertainty.
but I hate to give away a whole year on student learning too.
Okay, what are they doing now?
We're doing a lot of electrical, how to do electrical in house, you could build walls in a classroom. So they're doing plumbing, those different house improvement type of task. Not the same, but.
Not a thing,
Yeah, so
lab site kind of stuff.
I'm asking us to act on something.
No, I guess with the understanding that that we're going to utilize the existing dollars that are in that account for the resale. Can we increase our budget with purchase price and renovation costs that we still expect to have at least a break even or approximately a break even, but it might be a higher budget that would spread over a longer period of time.
But if we break even with what we have now, going into the next house, we come out exactly even, will we have money for the next house?
Yes. We have, I think we sold a house.
It should be around 290.
I think it was like, 276, I think, after all that we have in that account.
Okay, because I just don't want to come back in 2 to 3 years or 4 to 5, however, whichever plan we go with, and then be starting from scratch with nothing and want to be able to continue this program, but not have the resources to do it, especially with given the forecast.
Yeah,
Is
I-
it fair to say that what we would have left to sustain it would be the sale of the home? That's what we would have.
Yeah,
left?
we'd have the equity in the home, yeah.
Yeah.
But even if we take a purchase price for renovations, that is still $100,000 less than what's sitting in that account.
When is the bidding or the auction ending?
Well, they run, it's a 2 to 3 day auction, like it starts
Starts
today and
today.
it's December 1st. So it's usually 2.5
And
days.
that's-
But this is the same house that we've been talking about for.
Yes, we've
for
been
a couple
bidding on it.
months.
If they don't get
So-
hit the reserve, they just schedule the next auction
Because they're
5 to
not
7
We
days later.
think the
Because
reserve
they
is
don't
about,
like, they don't like the bids coming in, so that's why they continue to keep.
the bank has a,
Minimum, but
Okay,
so the bank has
they
a,
don't tell you. what it
probably an
is.
amount that they're owed,
okay.
they're the owners, that they'd like to get out of it because they don't really want to lose money. At some point, they're gonna make a decision, because they're not in the business of owning homes, they want to get rid of them. So we want to be able to go a little higher to push, just to see if there's a point that they'll accept. But even if it's where we think their reserve is, and again, we're guessing, we still don't, it's higher than the board has kind of authorized us in the past, but we think it's about 15 to 20,000 higher than we've gone.
And you've consulted with realtors and everything, so you're having help in the
Yeah.
process. 'Cause
Yes.
we're not in the
We-
business
we-
generally of owning
yeah.
homes
Yeah.
either.
No,
so-
We've been on to look at some of the foreclosure information and some of the county auditor information as to where, what's owed and what they bank took it for, stuff like that. So we kind of have an idea. We don't know it, they're not gonna disclose that to us.
Mhm.
But we just want to be upfront with the board too, that we're gonna get this, we need a little more flexibility up front.
And they know that the school district is actually bidding on it.
Probably we got to register the school district for the bid, so they probably should know. Whether they're privy to that or just the auction site, I don't know.
Feels like it's a lot of artificial intelligence monitoring the
It
whole,
does.
the whole process.
And there's no way to reach out to the
Very
bank and have a talk with them, or I mean, like, there's no, that's why they hire the auction company, so they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think, my personal opinion is if we're staying within the budget and we're having money, planning properly for the next one, and we're not gonna cost the district any additional money.
We don't have any intent of going outside of that fund.
Yes, our goal would be when in 2 to 5 years, whenever we sell this house, that we replenish that full 276 in there. Then you buy the next house and just repeat and keep that learning center going.
I just think it's such a valuable opportunity for the kids. It's something that you don't really get a lot of. I think it's worth raising a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
Another finding is that we're still 6 months left over in an IWIP grant. Now, I don't know if the purchase of this would be that timely, but we're still sitting with a good chunk of change in an IWIP grant to support us until June 30th as well.
How many students on a yearly basis are participating?
Right around 30. It's 2/3 of the teacher's day. So he teaches an introductory class, a lot of the skills that are needed in that, the first block of each semester. And then his last 2 blocks of his day are at the house.
I mean, definitely want to be able to continue and sustain this program somehow. I don't, the 5-year thing kind of throws me out a little bit of how to, I don't want to like stretch the project out just for the sake of stretching. it out.
Well, we wouldn't stretch it out for the sake of stretching it. If we got to, let's suppose that we did, the existing rooms that were there. But we had a design that said, hey, here's an here's an add-on bonus room, an add-on deck, an add-on something that the market isn't great right now, but hey, look, let's enhance it with the deck. Let's enhance it with a
So at
master
that
suite.
time, we would make that
So
decision.
an
Yes.
optional phase, two,
Yes.
depending on the
Yeah.
market.
And we would have
That's
that
how we're
kind of,
approaching it, I'd be fine.
yeah, that's how we'd have it. But if the market is good to sell, then we look at it. The other thing we talked about is, we may have done a little backwards this time because we sold and then we started looking. We probably need to start looking sooner. And so if we're looking at the market, when we're buying, what's out there, we'll know about, if we're gonna do like a little bonus room or something like that, you kind of know, depending on what's in the market. If we're able to buy something, then maybe we don't do it, we sell, but we already have one waiting in the wings. If we don't, then we can continue to do something. Maybe you work on the garage next or something like that.
I think it's valuable to create.
And we're still learning on this
Spending
too.
on it. I think it's valuable.
So, and remember, the board also has to approve it formally whenever that does happen. So this isn't just by giving us some direction here doesn't mean that you're out of the loop on that.
So that would be unfinished business.
Yes.
Any new business? The correspondence and announcements, I don't have any, I have not received anything. Anybody else have anything? All right, let's talk about upcoming events. There's no work session scheduled for December. Instead, we're having a regular board meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, December 20th at 6:15 here in the Starbucks Center Conference Room. We do not have any public participation as we didn't the first time around in this meeting. I'm gonna go ahead and motion that we adjourn and then.
Sure.
Going to-
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, just so we know. We're getting that right.
We're adjourning to executive session to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, I hereby move board adjourn executive session for the purpose of considering employment, discipline of a public employee or official.
A second.
Second.
So we'll stay in here. There's no official business after this.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mrs. Foley?
yes.
Mr. Leidig?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Truster?
Yes.
And then